All right, welcome, welcome. So I have a mom here that has agreed to allow me to film our first consultation after her child's gene report came in. This is a non-autistic child, but there's a couple of underlying health issues. This is a young woman. We're not going to use any identifiers here. But we kind of suspect autism in the family. We kind of suspect certain things. And I thought it would be really good. You're going to hear her in the background. It's actually the woman that works with me. So, yay. I've been training her to work with these genomes and to work with those that don't come from this program. This will also kind of give you a better idea of why I only want to work with Intelix DNA and why, if I have to work with another DNA company, we charge almost the exact amount, even though it's not going to be as complete. So with Intelix DNA, the app of the company is so complete, it saves me about 4 hours behind the scenes. I'm still putting in several hours behind the scenes, making Genome Speaks and doing the things I do. But as a practitioner or as the one consulting on the gene report, it makes my life so much easier, and I understand so much more. So some of you have been wondering, like, what am I doing? I'm not stopping what I'm doing. I'm expanding what I'm doing. So I've spent the last, oh, I guess since November, training 5 practitioners, one medical doctor, 2 nurse practitioners, and 2 naturopaths. Actually, 2 medical doctors. I apologize. One I haven't signed paperwork with yet, so I've just one I have an affiliate directly. Next, um, so now we have a team that comes together and works with people, and a team that learns together, and a team that's doing something. So it's not just one person responsible for everything. And this way, people get to choose what they want. So let's go ahead and share screen, get into this. And this is only going to be a small portion of her report. One, just time-wise, no one's going to sit here and watch an hour of a gene report. That's ridiculous. And two, know that this is specific to this particular child, nobody else. And what we're going to say does not apply. And this is going to be real raw. So we might break off into other conversations. We might talk about symptoms. We might talk about exposure levels. Keep in mind that Dawn has been working with me for several months now and is getting really good at genes herself. So she's going to have her own ideas, her own process. And we have not made this individual's gene report yet, or not gene report, genome speaks yet. And we might do another video after Dawn gets that done this week. So let's get started. Here we go. Okay, so this is the hotspot summary. This is just the section of the report. This is just the section of the report that is under 30% patient prevalence. In other words, what percentage of the population has this particular gene, and what's relevant to that. So Dawn has already gone through, we can kind of show that real quick, and done some work over here. That's really more information behind the scenes. You guys don't need to know that. But I want to show you this particular patient has 4.1% patient prevalence for that one, 5.7, 6.1, 6.1, 7.5, 7.6, 7.8, 8.2, 9%, 11.3%, 12%, 13%, 14%. If you were an average oops. If you were if you were the average practitioner, how would you know that this was part of this patient's makeup? The reality is you wouldn't. And so kind of ones I say it is that when an average doctor comes in and they're not using genomes, or they're not as educated or well versed in genomics, they look at the person as if they were everybody else. They look at the scientific data based on symptoms and or diagnosis. I let go of diagnosis and I consider symptoms a sign only. Let me show you what this looks like, okay? So I want to state in here, not a medical doctor, not at all. I'm not practicing medicine, and nothing I'm doing here is medicine. If a patient needs more than what I can offer in this consult, they move on to a higher level who is a medical doctor. And that's part of our entire package. He overviews and oversees everything I do here. So I want to be very clear, very specific. All right. NQO1, there's several different forms of NQO1. This happens to be the more uncommon form of NQO1. Individuals with this SNP have an impaired ability to get rid of toxins, particularly environmental toxins such as benzene, smoke, and superoxide. Benzene is in a lot of things. Suntan lotion. It is in your gas burner when your pilot light. It is in smoke from when you make a bonfire. It is in all sorts of things. And I want you to start researching what is benzene and what is benzene oxide. That's going to be important, especially if your individual has this. Now, next, this SNP makes it difficult to recycle CoQ10 and vitamin E to their active forms. This means that with one copy, an individual has a 90, or excuse me, a 68% reduction in the ability to convert CoQ10 to their activated forms. If they have two copies, it increases that by 96 to 98%. Let me show you in layman's terms what this means. So I'm going to perplexity.pro.ai, and I'm going to put in here, I'm going to put CoQ10, um, see, benefits. I don't really put in benefits. CoQ10 not being converted causes what? So I'm sitting here talking to this mom. Now, she already knew because she's been working with me for quite a long time. Okay, what not being converted can mean: impaired endogenosis synthesis, secondary CoQ10 deficiency, other mitochondrial or metabolic disorders, medications like statins and chronic illness can increase those. Aging can increase that, poor absorption or formulation issues with supplementation of CoQ10, a different one here. I'm going to put in NQ01. Consider two variants. Oops. NQO. This is what I do in the office all day long. Okay. Two common loss of function in QO1 variants markedly reduce the enzyme's ability to reduce basically ubiquinol, increasing oxidative stress and altering response to certain quinone drugs and toxins. I get tongue-tied a lot, guys. Most of the functional literature focuses on these two polymorphisms. We're not going to get through that. Functional role of NQO1. It's a flavonoid. I'm trying to go through real quick. We don't want to go through these. Okay. It benzyme metabolites with NQO1. See, hold on, here we go. Lower NQO protein. Oh gosh, keep kind of go through this. I'm trying to find things that Joe understand. Okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm trying to read things that are not going to be overwhelming to you guys. This is going to be much easier for you. What is CoQ10 used for in the body? This is going to help you a little bit better. Cellular energy, ATP and mitochondria, and to protect cells, membranes, and lipoproteins from oxidative stress as fat-soluble antioxidant. And then I'm going to put CoQ10 in the brain. It says turn up the volume. Why do you turn up the volume? Are you kidding me that I have the volume off? I have it on mute. Okay. I apologize, guys. I accidentally hit the mute button. CoQ10 in the brain is used for fuel neuronal mitochondria and to protect neuronal membranes and lipids from oxidative stress. What I want you to hear is it's part of the ATP mitochondria process. CoQ10 is related to everything. Experimental models of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and other neurodegenerative diseases show that CoQ can and reduce oxidative stress, improve mitochondrial function, and modulate autophagy and inflammatory pathways in the hippocampus and cortex. Now watch CoQ10 in autism. Now, usually I had to sit here and talk to the mom, and I was hoping just to film what I was doing with the mom, but I didn't. So she already knows all this, so I was just sharing it with you. Look at this. A substantial subset of autism individuals show biomarkers or clinical patterns consistent with mitochondrial dysfunction, including abnormal respiratory chain activity and elevated lactate. What I want you to see is this is a big driving factor. And it doesn't matter how many times I look at this, I can keep coming up with more and more research. We could do doctoral level dissertation just based on CoQ10's activity in the body. So when I go back to this report and I see this particular one, this is a big deal. Now, how do I properly support that? That's a different conversation. Um, this mom and I have already discussed that, and I'm not going to get into that because it's part of Intellect's DNA's support for practitioners. Now, here's one. This is oxytocin receptor. Oxytocin is responsible for the feeling of love and social bonding.
I've not seen this one yet.
This is the one that I use the nucleic. So this is from Nucleic, the company that I use. It's a homeopathic company here locally in Oklahoma. This is not, this is their neuroinflammation one. They have one called oxytocin. It's also oxyreg, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
Oxytocin is responsible for the feeling of love and social bonding. Individuals with this SNP have been associated with less ability to to develop social bonds and have lower social skill scores. Does that sound like autism to anybody? A little bit,
And both of my kiddos' hands,
right?
I would
It's
say.
right there.
Yeah.
Here's another one. This one has to do with their reaction to ADHD medication. So this SNP is involved in dopamine regulation and reuptake. So when I'm working with the practitioners that are actually um, prescribing medications for ADHD or autism or whatnot, I can tell them, you know, I can give them considerations like, hey, this one's less likely to work for this particular person. Let me show you that to you real quick. Look, we would actually come in with Bacopa. Have you seen Bacopa?
I've seen that, but I don't know anything about it actually.
Yeah.
So this versus a
Mhm.
medication.
Yeah, but they're going to have a slower response.
So Prozac, how would Prozac work with
So we
somebody
have to
in
get
this?
that's the serotonin. I'll get to that one
Okay,
towards
so
the
that's
end.
not a stimulant. Prozac is not a stimulant.
No, doesn't
Okay.
work on this particular one.
Yeah.
No. All right, so here's attention and focus. So say someone has ADHD, this would be something we would actually look at here. This SNP codes for a protein that transports dopamine back to the nerves, into the nerve cells. And individuals with this variant have higher dopamine. Very, very interesting.
Mhm.
NLRP3, another really, really big interesting. By activating more inflammasomes increase the production of other inflammatory molecules. Guys, when we're talking about things like autoimmune disorders, what if we start letting go of the diagnosis and just support the body and how that particular body is designed? Which is going to bring me to a bigger conversation about the difference between people say, well, autism isn't genetic. I get it. I get it. Mom and dad may not have autism. And your idea is that genetics come. So if mom and dad have it, and then they have a baby, and then the baby has it, that's genetic. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about genomic. And what genomic really refers to is how all the ancestry, all the genetics from, mom and dad and grandparents and great parents, the whole array comes to align itself in a very, very, very unique code to that person. That is their genomic code or their expression. That is how they're aligned and what they tend towards. It's not a death sentence. It's not a this is set in stone. It's as, okay, this is how the body has organized itself in its development. And these are the areas that we can kind of go to work or support, only if it also has the symptoms. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Well, maybe I'll just do it right now. So, one of the things I like to say is there's several vitamin D gene variants. And VDR is vitamin D receptor. So it doesn't necessarily matter what's in your blood serum levels. It's do you have the receptors to utilize that vitamin D as well. And if you get vitamin D right, your body itself will turn on and off 1,200 different gene variants. Glutathione, the same kind of situation is there as well. It turns on and off 1,700 different gene variants. And so it's a matter of supporting. I want to show you another a chart that I usually kind of pull up for all the doctors. So by all the doctors, so far I have now clinically educated or shared with over 80 doctors, more every day. But as my program grows, now that's part of what I'm hired to do with another system. In my own system, as my system grows, my goal is 150,000 doctors. It's not about me. It's about gathering this research, gathering this input, and gathering this experience. It's about treating the actual person and supporting the actual person how their body needs to be supported. One of the things I understood really, really early on is we are not cookie cutters. You are not the same as I am. This little girl that we're looking at is not the same. She's not even the same as her mother. There's a lot more tendencies to be similar as her mother, but she's not the same as her mother. What does this mean? This means if we go back and we look at each individual, how their genes arrange themselves and how their body needs support, it, all of a sudden, giving their body what it needs becomes less shooting in the dark and more targeted. And
Medicine.
it's precision medicine, but truly you precision medicine. Um, I love this conversation. I could just get lost in it all day. But let me show you. This is the methylation cycle. So very frequently, you'll actually hear people talk about MTHFR. It's way down here. So here's MTHFR. Um, this particular young lady has MTHFD1. She has two of them. As a matter of fact, I have this as well. So I actually take leucovorin. It's actually one of the things I needed to do to balance my methylation cycle. I do not have MTHFR. This particular young lady does. Um, but I had all the symptoms of MTHFR. So why did I have all the symptoms of MTHFR but did not have MTHFR? Because I had MTHFD1, 3 enzymatic steps before MTHFR. So all these people running out and spending $800 on an MTHFR test, I'm glad you're doing that. You're doing a good job. But there's more to this cycle. Let me show you this right here too. This particular individual, let me see, it doesn't have her name at the top. It does not. Good job. She just has MTRR and FOLR1. This is her methylation cycle here. This is a big deal, folks. Now, if I take all of these and then I take this cute little handy dandy chart, and yes, I do think of Blue's Clues like handy dandy notebook, except these are my handy dandy charts. I keep them in my office regularly. I keep them all over the place. And when I meet with a parent, I'm like, okay, so here, here, and here is where your child is having an issue. This is what we're going to be making sure we have more of, less of, so that we do not over methylate their brains. I go for food sources when possible, or I go for over-the-counter supplements. Now, for MTHFD1 and FOLRC, and that would be leucovorin, also called folinic acid. And we go low and slow, and I am being supervised by Dr. Ali as I train him, which is a little frustrating. But we're going to kind of keep going, talk about this child. So notice this red box warning. This patient has a combination of NLRP3 and IL-1B variants that can increase the risk of severe fatigue by nearly 30 times in the presence of an infection.
30 times. That's crazy.
30 times. So these are the kids that when they get sick, they're done. They're flat out. They're sound asleep.
Yes,
like let's say the 19 one, the big thing that hit recently, these are the people, well, because I have this one too. When I caught it, it did not go to my lungs, but I felt like my bones were going to break. I literally put a mattress on the floor and I put a Chuck's back pad on the mattress and I just laid there. I felt like I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. It was so difficult that I waited to the last minute and it was, guys, it was terrible. But the exhaustion was incredibly real. Wouldn't it be nice to know that that was you and that there was something we could do about it even in the time? So we'll create a flare protocol for her. So this is what we do on a regular, and this is what we do in times of illness. We'll get your flare protocol together, by the way. Yeah. Notice some more about tension and focus, neurobehavioral research, depression, inflammation. These are people who have normally high CRP levels, but we don't want them that way. Oh, here's the FOLR1. This is the primary way that methylated folate moves into the brain. This variant can decrease the transport, potentially even with normal serum folate levels. Normal serum folate levels, which can contribute to lower cerebral folate. Note, if true cerebral folate deficiency is present, high dose folinic acid has best evidence. This is your leucovorin. And when I was attending MAPS, I was noticing that some of the doctors were doing up to 25 milligrams twice a day. What would be nice if you guys didn't have to fight to find the right practitioners. If you had these gene reports And let's say this particular individual only has one, say if they had two of these, plus some of the other folinic acid needs. What if you had a practitioner who was well versed and was willing to move up incrementally without having, appointments 6 months apart? That was what was needed. That's why you hear about the big project that I've been doing. That's what I was creating. I was creating medical doctors who were willing to do all sides. And because of their licensure, state licensure, all the different things and hoops they've got to jump through, I created a second form of licensure. So they will be dually licensed practitioners where they can work under both. And then the patient will just sign saying, yes, I'm taking personal responsibility, and I understand that you're working under your PMA and not working under your medical license under the situation. And they'll just be able to switch back and forth. Here's her MTHFR. Notice it's only yellow. This is not
I was
the
just
worst.
thinking that.
The MTHFD1 was much more of a risk variant than the MTHFR, which is what everyone's always screaming about MTHFR. And I'm sitting here going, okay, guys, this is not the thing you think it
Low-hanging
is.
fruit.
Yeah, it's the low-hanging fruit. It's the one that has social media posts. And it's like orange juice. Isn't the highest level of vitamin C you can get. It's just the one that has propaganda. MTHFR just is the one that's popular. And I'm like, oh, guys. And then if you post in one of these MTHFR groups that there are things that are more impactful than MTHFR, they will literally kick you out of the group. And if I share this kind of thing in the crunchy groups, they will literally kick you out. Uh, Boggles my mind. Um, okay, let me show you one other thing here. Notice I've got all these different, I can switch.
Yes.
Notice
Yeah,
the
that was
description
interesting.
changes
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
depending on what I'm wanting to do or to consider, it changes.
So, I mean, it does contribute to all of the, and I've never seen one with four in it. So really, this does contribute, even though it's less of a risk,
It
there's
does have
still,
contributing factors.
yeah, to all of those
So I would
types of,
call this a contributor, but not a driving force. I would say the driving force was more the FOLR and more the MTHFD1. Uh-oh. Okay. Also IL-6. I have this one. I have two of these as well. Individuals are prone to increased levels of IL-6. Interleukin-6 goes up in response to infections and tissue damage. It can cross the body into the brain. It can contribute to an increased risk of depression even years after a medical event. Even years after a medical event. So you could be years and years. Let's say I had an ectopic pregnancy years ago, many, many, many moons ago. When I finally slowed down and quit masking and quit hiding my symptoms, guess what? Years later, I had the inflammation and responses to it. Phenomenal how the body works. This one has two different panels it's in. And we're not allowed to share everything that goes on here. Like this is proprietary. Oh, here's a Dora. Oh, some of my kids that, you know, are epilepsy, but this gene is normally responsible for keeping glutamate, your excitatory brain chemical, and dopamine associated with movement and reward loop from getting too high. Individuals with this SNP appear to have lower levels of this receptor, leading to higher glutamate and a lesser extent higher dopamine. Think that's related? All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop this here, stop the recording, stop the sharing, stop all the things. Um, because I don't want to, this isn't about teaching you how to do genomics. This is about understanding that there's something else out there. We checked almost 900 different genes for this young lady, and we're going to be able to, no matter what, always have something we work on, which I'll introduce you to Genome Speaks. If you don't know, I have it in my flipping books. It's on my website, and you can actually use that QR code there. But this is on my website. I create this book using this report. And then notice when I went through and I was doing all that research and showing you on Perplexity, I print that stuff up for you
mhm.
and then relate it back to the gene. So you're getting basically huge levels of education per gene. That's what I found was missing locally. And a lot of these gene reports, you're getting just the gene, and then you're like, okay, now what do I do with it? What does that even mean? Which is going to bring me to what Dawn is now doing. But from her home, we don't need an office to do this. If you bring her another gene report, because I've been training her as much as I possibly can, she will sit here and painstakingly gather information to create as best as she can from that. Now, it's hours and hours and hours. I think if you're going to spend the money, you should just go ahead and do Intellect's DNA and register with one of the practitioners that I work with. Dr. Ali is standing here, ready and waiting. His specialty is longevity, sports medicine, healing after injury, sports injuries. Um, I have another one that's a nurse practitioner that would like to do with pediatrics and autoimmune disorders. Then there's another doctor who I'm working with that is working with Alzheimer's and aging. And we'll just get you put with the right practitioner, with who you need the most, who works with the larger report. And that's what we're going to start doing. You're going to start seeing me posting a lot, but not for myself. I'm going to be posting a lot for other people. Now, I don't create Genome Speaks for just every gene report. Instead, we do a little mini Genome Speaks because these reports are so small. The majority of reports you get are like 40, maybe 70 genes. They're great. I can get a little bit of insight, but I really can't get a whole view. What I really like, did I tell you what I did? What I wanted uh Intellects to rename their big overview, the one that has all of their genes in it, the Big Mac Daddy. I was teaching a doctor the other day and I was like, "Oh, you really got everything done." And they're like, "Yeah, I got the Mac Daddy." I was like, "Oh, that's it. From now on, that is the Mac Daddy report." This is you for a lifetime. After you get a Genome Speaks, or after you work with this, or whatever practitioner you have, whatever level that they're doing here. I'm the only one doing Genome Speaks at this moment. But um, after you work with them, what you get is the rest of your life, you have someone who can look over and reevaluate based on that moment and your genes, period, forever, forever and ever. This that never changes. Um, I understand it's an investment, but it's really a great investment. And then the reason I created Genome Speaks, the whole purpose behind the thing was so that if you went to another practitioner, such as a neurologist, or you would be able to pull out the reports that were relevant to that practitioner and hand it to them. Like anesthesia, I could tell, I have two different gene variants, by the way, that I was talking to you.
No, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. That I need 40% less propofol anesthesia.
Oh.
I know. Can you imagine if I had gone into or had it in my medical records that I need 40% less propofol with this particular gene and 40% less with this? They would have been a lot more careful. Or if I was prone to AFib during
Yeah.
anesthesia.
What was that gene variant you said?
The propofol one,
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up. I don't have that one off the top of my head.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I have two of them.
Hmm.
I'll show them to you when we're done here, but
So do
maybe
you
I should show them on camera.
metabolize them faster? Is it
Um,
stabilized or what is the
I don't clear it out fast, so it just sticks with me forever. And so the anesthesiologist, they would choose something that's not propofol based,
hmm
and then they would still go low and slow.
Okay, that's
I mean,
interesting.
they would go super low. So though I had surgery, I had an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured, almost lost my life. I was bleeding to death, yada yada yada. I watched the clock turn 10 o'clock at night as I went into the OR. And then the next morning, by 10 o'clock in the morning, they had not revived me yet. And it was supposed to be a half an hour to 45-minute surgery, and they could not get me to wake up.
Dang.
And I was blaming the doctor the whole time because they kept dosing me for my weight. And at the time, I was like 310 pounds. I'm not that anymore, but I was. And I kept saying, don't dose me for that weight because I don't take any medications at all. And I'm sensitive. I already knew that I was going to have a problem with it. Even after giving me stimulants and doing all sorts of things, they couldn't get me to wake up. That was kind of a concern. Everybody's getting really worried. They were trying to I had ice in the back of my neck. They were trying to get me there. Had they known, had that anesthesiologist had that information, I would have had a whole lot less recovery time. And then the
Mhm.
anesthesia settled in my right arm. It was a whole big thing. They could have done with, and I'm not an anesthesiologist, I don't know, but I know at least 40% less, but possibly, 60% less, 80% less propofol. That would have been less my body needed to recover from,
Mhm.
less inflammation, less reaction, and I would have woken up and I would have been a lot safer during the surgery. So the whole point behind me creating Genome Speaks was because I'm not a medical doctor, because I wanted to be able to further communicate with those that need a little extra support. And then when we start talking about things like sulforaphane or silymarin or these things that aren't showing up as a prescription, but as a natural resource and supplement, I wanted, the pediatricians, the neurologists, all the other forms of medical staff to get that there's real research behind that. Very, very research, very, very highly researched, and what that research is, and what it means, and what it's going to do, and how it will interact with other medications, because it's really important information. So I was looking at this from a standpoint of better communication with the medical field, and more connection. And I get that that's probably going to get me in a lot of trouble, and I got that. Well, it's going to have to be what it's going to have to be. But here we are. Welcome to what I do here. Bye. We'll talk to you again in a little bit.